Hey everyone, in this video I want to talk about a pretty huge update to the Microsoft Security Copilot capabilities related to Microsoft Entra. This also includes a very cool new conditional access agent. Now remember, when we think of Security Copilot, it's providing us that AI assistant and a number of agents related to security roles we have within our organization. It can help us better understand our security posture. It can help us detect and then mitigate threats and a lot more. As I think about Security Copilot, there are really two different experiences. We have the Security Copilot site we can go to. So I can go to Security Copilot, and that's where I have this standalone experience. There's guidance for prompts you can try out. I can type things out. And this hooks into a huge number of different skills. Some of them are from Microsoft. Some of them are from third parties. In fact, we could jump over and see this. So if I quickly go and look, here you can see I'm actually looking at securitycopilot.microsoft.com. It's giving me prompts I can try out. It's telling me information. Hey, look, there's agents available. But down here on the prompt bar, well, there's more prompts I can try out, but I can also adjust the skills that I am using because it hooks into a massive number of different sources. Now, a lot of the Microsoft ones are based on the Microsoft Graph, but there are other things as well. So right now it's showing me the Microsoft. So there's agents, there's firewall, there's web application firewall. But if I hit this show more, well, then we can see it's also enabled for a whole bunch of other skills, including Microsoft Entra, which is obviously what I'm going to focus on today. But there's others, there's ones from third parties. I can add files in that it can use for intelligence, just a whole bunch of really great things to do. But when I enter a certain query, it decides which source it's going to use for that particular query. So it will auto work out what it's going to do. So the Security Copilot site is fantastic. I can use all of the different sources available. But our other option is we have the various different Microsoft portals we use today. For example, in Entra, I use entra.microsoft.com. And so also what we're often going to see now is we have this sidecar experience. You might also hear it called the embedded experience. And this is where we'll get the little Copilot button. I can't draw it, obviously, but I think it's kind of something like that. And it goes here as well. Terrible, terrible picture of the Copilot. But I can hit the Copilot button, and then I get this embedded sidecar experience where, once again, it may give me suggested prompts I can enter. I can type that in, and then this will use the source, the specific skill that pertains to this particular area. So if I was in Purview, it would use the Purview skills around Copilot. If I'm in the Entra portal, well, it would use the Entra one. And once again, if we jump over, we can see exactly this. So if I'm in now, go to entra.microsoft.com, we see our friendly Copilot logo that I completely butchered trying to draw it. But now this brings up this sidecar. So this is going to be focused purely on that Entra source. So it's not going to try and use any of the others. It's fully embedded in just that one. So we have different ways to go and hook into the Microsoft Security Copilot. Now, this is not brand new to have Entra skills in Security Copilot. However, the way it's being implemented is what they had before were 8 separate skills related to Entra. So there were things about users. So I could say, hey, what groups is a user in? There was risky users, risky applications, audit logs, sign-in logs. There were a couple of other ones. But I could only ask questions specific about those 8 areas. They were very simplistic, and it would often get confused if a question required multiple calls. It wouldn't work. So I couldn't ask a more complex question. So now what we have is those 8 separate skills we have in the past have been replaced. So now we just have this brand new Entra skill. So now I have the Entra source and skill that, hey, the Security Copilot hooks into. But obviously, when I'm using the Entra portal, when I go and use that Copilot, well, it's hooking into that Entra experience. So I now have this one skill, and this is based off the Microsoft graph. Like many things are in the Microsoft graph, including Entra, but also things like Office and Intune and all those great capabilities. So I have the Microsoft graph. So now what happens is when I use the Entra Microsoft Security Copilot skill, I'm entering my request, or the agent is doing something cool. And it's taking the natural language that I'm typing in, and it's now converting it to a graph query or queries. So it can do a more complicated set of reasoning to achieve what I'm asking it to. It will parse it, send me those end results. And one of the really nice things it's doing is because now it's just taking the natural language and converting it to a graph query, it massively increases the scope of what I can do. Now, what it does leverage is a special module to work out, well, what are the right graph queries to make sure it's doing the right things based on what I enter. So specific areas of Entra, they are creating this sort of knowledge base. You can think of it like retrieval augmented generation. Hey, I'm giving it more help to make sure it gets the prompt spot on. So different areas of Entra you can think about are populating examples. In generative AI, we call this like a few shot. So you give it a few examples of something. So this can actually go and hook into. So specific areas and teams in Entra are creating these few shot examples for their technology to really just help improve the overall quality when I type this in and it does the most perfect Microsoft Graph query. So it can use this to get help to formulate the right query, create the graph query, send it to Microsoft Graph, parse the results, give us the output. And again, it may actually do multiple iterations to get the answer we need. So now I can ask way more general questions about anything related to Entra, which is all going to be based in this Microsoft Graph. And it will work out what it needs to do. The responses are going to be faster. Now, important from a security perspective, it's still using an on behalf of. So it can't do anything that I can't do. So it's acting on behalf of my security principal. If it's a more privileged request I'm making, well, then I would have to ping up to the role for it to be able to get access to maybe read that data. And it is only read today. It is not making changes. Today, it's all about that investigation, helping me get the information I need. So maybe a good way of doing this is we could look at a few examples. So if we bounce back over again and look at a couple of examples around this. So I'll actually start off in the Entra experience, which most of the times you'll be in the portal in which you're working. You won't generally go to the Security Copilot standalone site. You're probably working in something. So I could be over here and I can just go ahead and ask it a question. So I might say, list the global admins. So I'm going to just ask it that question. And what it's doing behind the scenes is it's formulating, well, what are the graph calls I need to make to actually get this information? And here we can see it's spitting that out. I could say, well, do they have passkeys enabled? So it has the context of what was previously there. So I'm asking it a follow-on question. Okay, so that worked for me when I tried this yesterday. It is new, so obviously they're still playing around with a few things on the back end. Let's try a different one. Are there any active health security alerts? So for this one, it can go and again check the API, query the graph, and see if I have any security alerts. I don't think I do have any, but hopefully it will just confirm that. Okay, so good. So it confirmed, hey, I don't have those things. And likewise, I could do exactly the same in the Microsoft Security Copilot experience. Now, again, it's going to automatically detect which source to use. So I'm going to try and give it a little bit of a hit. So what risky users in my Entra tenant are also group owners? So this is asking multiple things. So it would have to go and work out, well, who are the risky users? And then go and look up, well, are they also owners of particular groups? There's going to be multiple queries it's going to need to do. And what's cool here is it's actually going to show me the steps it's doing. So here I can see, okay, it chose Microsoft Entra source correctly, which is the one I wanted it to use. And now it's going to show me exactly the steps it's doing. So it went and looked at the API to find risky users, and it found me. And then it went, okay, well, is John a group owner? And it's found out I am. So it went and found the groups that I am an owner of. So you can see it went through these multiple steps to fulfill that query I entered. And what's actually really cool about this is if I jump up to Security Copilot, this isn't Entra specific, but I could go and look at all of my sessions. And if I go and look at a different session, so I think this is the one that I was using within the Entra portal, I can still go and look at what it did to work out. So here it's doing, hey, the global admin. So here I can actually go and see the steps to go and work out, hey, the global administrators. I can go and see, well, maybe try and work out why it couldn't find that particular, if they're passkeys or not. And then it's showing me the other to check the security alerts. So I can drill down and actually see everything it's doing behind the scenes to go and work out all of those different things I'm asking it. So obviously that's not a critical thing to do, but it's kind of cool that I can just go and hook into that. And all of those types of interactions that I showed there wouldn't have been possible in the past where I just had those very limited 8 specific skills. But there's something else that I wanted to actually dive into. One of the things I can also now do is I can leverage a conditional access agent. So what the conditional access agent is doing is it's working behind the scenes. That's kind of the point about an agent. And very often what happens is we add new applications, we add new users, and they fall between the cracks. They fall between the gaps in our policies. We forget to add them to a group that's part of the policy. So they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to bad actors. They maybe do behavior we do not expect. And today, there's a fairly significant amount of work you would have to do. So periodically, for example, hey, I'll go and look at the last 30 days for new users, for new applications, and try and work out, maybe do what ifs and what's the sum of the conditional access policies. It's very time consuming. Some companies will hire other companies to go and do this, so it's expensive. So what now we have is our friendly conditional access agent. So we have our CA agent, and we also have to draw the agent as having a little robot face, and they always have antenna. Otherwise, how would Wi-Fi work? And the conditional access agent is tying into the Microsoft graph. Today it runs on a 24-hour interval, and it's looking for, well, are there new users or applications that are not in a CA scope, i.e. they have fallen between the cracks. And if it does find those things, it also is going to look for conditional access policies that do the same thing that it could merge. Well, it's going to go and add suggestions. So it's going to say, hey, look, I found this, it's missing, we should probably go and do something about this. And what's really nice is when it has these suggestions, it won't just say, oh, go and add this user to the policy. That's not how we like to do best practices. Best practices would say, we'll add users to a group and add the group to the policy. So it would recommend that. If it's already created a group in the past, it would recommend adding the user to that group. So it's going to be very efficient with what it's going to actually do and not lead us with this whole mess of tons of users added to policies. So if we jump over again, so here, we'll actually close down the little Copilot area here. But if I now go to conditional access, it's even going to be kind of telling me about, oh, look, there's a conditional access agent over here. But I can also just jump to policies and it will show it here. It's not created any. It's not got any suggestions for me right now. My tenant is super, super boring. But what I can do is I can look at the recent activity. So you can see it's running every 24 hours. I could also run it immediately if I wanted to. And I can look at what it does during those executions. And what I'll see is 3 threads get fired off. And it's looking, so here's my main skill. And what it's doing is it's looking for app drift, user drift, and are there policies that it could merge together? They're doing the same thing, so it's just messy. And we would then go and see, hey, if it found new apps, new users, if it found any ones that could be merged, and then, hey, what suggestions should it have? So it's going to run through this every 24 hours by default. Now, if I jump over for a second, actually, let's look at something a little bit more interesting. This is a different tenant. But here I can see it actually did have some unprotected users. And notice here, it's suggesting or adding a user to this made up policy. If I review the suggestion, if I, hey, this user is not in scope of a policy, recommend to do this, and I can just apply the suggestion. So if I apply the suggestion, it will then go through and, hey, either create that group or add them to a group that is in scope of that policy. So it's going to help get me into a good place. So instead of having to manually go and look and check, hey, are things falling between the gaps, it's just going to go and do that for me. So this is a huge push around that whole zero trust. Now, what you may have is certain users that like break glass accounts. You don't want them in a policy. So if I go to settings, AI, right now, I'll just see the 24-hour trigger. I can say, do I want users and applications? But I can also set custom instructions. So in this tenant, for example, hey, don't include this particular user. Don't include this particular group. Don't have this where we've created policies. Exclude this user if they block, for example. So I can give it very specific sets of instructions because I may have those break glass accounts. I may not want them being used for MFA, for example. So I have some really nice capabilities to tune the behavior of exactly what that agent is going to do. And if I jump over to mine are all blank. So you're going to start off with no custom instructions, but you can just go and edit them and then populate it with those special things you have. So, hey, I don't want my break glass account to be put into a thing with this certain type of MFA required, etc., etc. It's completely up to you, but this is a really great capability to make sure it behaves, the agent does what you want it to do in the manner in which you're trying to run your organization. And that was it. But when I say that was it, it's actually a pretty huge set of capabilities. So this now ability to just be able to use any kind of natural language, and you're not limited to this really small scope of capabilities that can't be chained together. They can't do that more complicated logic. Well, now we have this just natural language conversion to graph. And hey, we're getting these really high quality examples populated by the different teams to make sure we are getting exactly what we need. It's going to give us a great ability to just interact using our natural language, either through Security Copilot or through that sidecar experience. And then a conditional access agent is really taking a huge burden off of us as we add users, as we add applications, to make sure they're not falling between the gaps and leading to a vulnerability. So I hope that was useful. Until next video, take care.